Okay, the title isn't coming up, but anyway. So it's just Paludiculture at the catchment level, and just to put Adrian and Kieran at ease, they're just there to fact check. So anything I tell you, if you don't believe me, you can check with them. Okay, so they're just there as someone to talk to on the coffee break, so you can relax. So Paludiculture at catchment level. So, oh, there it is. I don't know. Yeah, it's very small. So first, so what the hell is Paludiculture? So Paludiculture, if we say that our agriculture is wetland, it's dryland agriculture from the Middle East. You have wetland, you drain it, and then you farm it. Paludiculture is it's wet, so you keep it wet, and you look at the different options. And there are a lot of options. It's not something that's ever been done before, except perhaps in the, let's say, producing reeds for thatching. But there's a lot there, and if you go, there's a DEFRA publication in the UK, and they propose up to 80 commercially viable crops that can be grown with the water up. So first of all, why do we need to think about these things? And in the context of the water quality, you can see here up on the top right, we have, do I have a zapper? Is that, oh no, it's this thing. You can see this is EPA maps for the Midlands. This is part of the area that we're working. The green areas is peatlands. And what you can see, and then the colored lines is essentially the quality of the water. And you can see there's a lot of red going on there. So where is this coming from? So yep, this is a raised bog. If it was healthy, you have a living layer, you have a dead catatem layer where the peat is being condensed and turned into turf you can burn on your fire. And the key thing here is that it's 95% water. So in order to do anything with it, you need to drop the water content by putting in drainage, bring it down to 80–85%. You can cut it for turf, and then afterwards it can be reclaimed for agriculture. So there's a definite 80s theme here in the break with the music. So just to give an appropriate reference, you can take Depeche Mode's advice and become your own personal Jesus. If you ever get to walk on an active raised bog, you will be walking on water. There's more solids in milk than there is in an active raised bog. So of course, what happens then? You lose all the water storage capacity to the depth of the drains, and then of course the peat is essentially undecomposed plant matter because it was wet and there was no oxygen, and when it's drained it starts to decompose. Pure carbon decomposes, it releases a lot of CO2 into the air, it releases DOC into the water, and the nitrates associated with the peat are released. So there's a lot of pollution that goes into the water along with that, which is part of the explanation for this red network of rivers we have in the heart of County Offaly. Again, this is just some of the figures, IPCC, so this is what they propose. This amount of DOC is released per every hectare of drained peatland, nitrates. If it's wet peat, it'll release ammonia. Once it's oxidized, it's going to be nitrates. And of course, if you have bare peat, then you're going to have peat solids as well. So you actually have carbon blanked in the riverbeds and bringing in all the associated nutrients. And this is what the figure here is demonstrating. This is just another issue. So from the farmer's point of view, so I suppose that's from the water quality perspective, but then also you have from the farmer's point of view, peat, it's decomposing and releasing CO2 and DOC because it's literally invisible erosion. Underneath that field surface, every year it's shrinking. Peat grasslands at the rate of 0.2 to ½ centimeter every year, and it can be emitting up to 30 tons of CO2 per hectare per year. So this was the focus of the Farm Carbon project that we were coming up with solutions for. Again, yeah, the titles are really gone. So flood control is the title that you can't read. So of course, just if you go back to the previous diagram, a healthy bog is going to act like a woodland. It will absorb excess rainfall and control flooding and slow down the peak of the flood. And then, of course, when times of drought, it will release water slowly. It will provide a steady flow. Just up on the right-hand side, this is next to one of our farms in Offaly. This is the bare peat surface you might be familiar with from Baldermona cutaway bogs. You can imagine the amount of nutrients and carbon and sediments that was coming off of that before it was restored recently. Again, obviously, that reduces the water storage capacity. You have an increased severity of flood events. And, of course, also from the literature, again, where there's, this is the typical tea coloration you'd have from drainage water from peat. This is not what it should be. This is damaged peatlands. Healthy peatlands release clear, well, there's a slight coloration, but nothing to that extent. And from a water treatment point of view, a lot of the companies in the UK, the water companies, when they're not releasing raw sewage, they restore the blanket bogs up in the mountains, and this has fixed the problems in relation to trihalomethanes that we were talking about earlier. Again, just with an eye to the future, the present, from the first speaker this morning, the present and the not too distant future. Again, dried peat is pure carbon, it will burn. So when it's dry, if there's a fire, it will ignite and it will burn. And the issue there, here's a big fire in the UK where they burn it for the grouse moors. And of course, once you do that too often, what happens is the peat becomes crust-like and it can no longer be restored. And this is just, we work with North Pennines Natural Landscape in the northeast of England. This just gives you an idea, okay, this is a sloped, but this gives you an idea of the kind of level of erosion. That's a small one. I've been up there. There's actually gullies in the blanket bogs in the mountains. You could drive 2 buses in parallel, So it's really incredible. And this is the landscape level, okay, that you're looking about. So all of those little islands of brown, there's all eroded peat around them. So it's a huge problem. So how do we solve it? Again, my titles are not working at all. So this is our Paludiculture work. So what we had to do with the EIP was look at the peat grasslands. So we needed to have a means of predicting emissions from those. So my colleague Bastiaan Mollema, postdoc from Wageningen, always very good to have a Dutchman on board when you're dealing with peatlands. They destroyed all the bogs, now they want to fix them all, which is great. So he took the Dutch data on peat grasslands, which is based on peat shrinkage. He combined it with Professor Evans' data from the UK, and he took the bit of the Wilson's data from Ireland, and essentially it's all on the same line. Every 10 centimeters adjustment in water level is 5 tons of CO2 per hectare per year. So this is very significant because a lot of our fields that have very deep drains, they'll be drained to 1 meter or more. So any change, any increase in water table is very beneficial from a climate perspective and from a water pollution perspective. So what we did, another key factor is 40 centimeters. So in Holland, you're mandated, again, they have very good control of the water levels, so they are mandated to keep them at 40 centimeters below. And the key thing there is that you do not change anything, because you hear a lot of talk about rewetting and flooding fields, misinformation. This is not the case. We're just raising the water table, and we can actually go from 1 meter below to 40 below with no impact on the field surface. But of course, paludiculture comes in when you do go above this level. What do? You do have an impact. You're going to start to change things. So the 2 things that happen is essentially peat, when it dries and degrades, it releases all these pollutants and the nitrates, which would feed the grass. So as the peat slows down the degradation, it doesn't provide as much nutrition. And the other factor is that we don't have, as the ground gets softer, then the animals are going to sink into the field. So we're doing a wet multi-species sward experiment at the Egan farm where we're finding solutions to these problems. The other thing, of course, we want to do is answer the question, because for generations, peat has been drained, fields have been reclaimed. We need to, first of all, get over the cultural barrier that, Kira may have drained the field and now Adrian wants to fix it. I think we've succeeded in this case, but we have to broaden that out. So we need to come up with the solutions, and that would include obviously providing grass as an option, which is what we're doing, but also to look at the other crops. And we're particularly interested in the high value ones. And then just the figures at the bottom, these are the areas of land involved. So there's 340,000 hectares of peat grasslands, and there's about this much cut over. So we think there's huge potential here to actually increase the area of agricultural land that is currently not being exploited, because the trouble is, it was drained and it was cut and it was used to heat our homes for generations, but the drains are left in place. So there's no economic incentive to block them up, and paludiculture is the solution here. This is again it's not working, PowerPoint hasn't translated, so I have to read out the titles to you. So the other 3 main options we're looking at besides providing grass is sphagnum, cattails, and soft fruits. I won't go into the details, but again, it just hasn't carried over. Sorry. Oh, there we go. This is good. This is just some of the values that can be obtained. So what we've done is we've proven the principle. On another farm, we've got our showroom, and at the Egan farm, we have our landscape level where we're doing bigger plots of these crops. And this is just to give you an idea of the values. I'll just pick on one example. This is just from the Chuggas research. So intensive blueberry farming can give you, obviously this is, I presume, the gross margins. Once you take out the operational costs, it's probably less. And cattail, I just give that as another example because this is a wonder crop. You can take the stems, you can chop it up and make a sustainable construction material, which is completely circular economy, biodegradable, and recyclable. And then you can also take the fluff from the heads, the kind of cigar-shaped heads, and these are more insulating than eiderdown as a material. So this is really important for the fashion industry, which is a bit of an environmental catastrophe in that all of their materials are based on fossil fuels. Oh, sorry. Okay, just to finish up. Okay, so this is just some of our plots. This is our, on the right-hand side, strawberry clover growing very well at a high water table. Watercress, rhubarb. We just wanted to show all of the things you can do with wet peat. Prove the principle and then scale it up, okay? And then this is just this is our showroom farm. So what I will do, I'll just flick to the last one. So this is the landscape farm at the Egans. Again, we do the whole farm plan, but you can see on the right-hand side, this is the boggy bit. And what we have there is about 4 to 5 hectares. So just from a water catchment point of view, what have we done? We've blocked these drains here, here, and here, and we've essentially removed about 4 to 5 hectares of peatland from the catchment and removed all of those pollutants. And we have a mosaic, because there's about 1 hectare of remaining raised bog, which we've re-wet. We have restoring bog, and then we have this mosaic of blueberries and cattails and sphagnum and other potential crops that are available. Okay, right. Just lastly, we're in the final of the Agricultural Rural Inspiration Awards, Environmental Protection category, Farm Carbon, so we very much appreciate your vote. There's a public vote component, so I'll just get that plug in there at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug.